Hello, dear friends. It's Romania Black. And we're on episode 8, baby. Of the case study of Vanitas. I was debating on whether or not the rule of 8 applied to this series because it's 24 episodes long. But then I was informed that it was initially 2 cores, and I was like, oh, then it applies twice. So the rule of 8 on my channel, if you're not familiar with it, is that anytime I have a series that's 11 to 13 episodes long, whether it's a season, whether it's an arc, whether it's an entire series, the 8th episode is always special, no matter what. So I'm really excited because the 8th episode's always 8's my lucky number. I'm excited about 8. I can't wait to see it. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I've been really, really excited. And so I've got like my juice ready. I'm all amped up. I can't wait to see what's going to go down. But I've got a few comments to talk about before we get there though. So Geen noted that with episode 5, Funimation gave a content warning because, as they should have. I liked that episode 5, it starts out all cutesy, so I like that Funimation was like, hey, giving you a heads up, things are going to get gory real quick. And so definitely warranted, right? It's not the goriest thing I've ever seen in anime, but it was a definite tonal shift I wasn't expecting. So I found that interesting. K.A. noted that Ruthven's VA is actually the same as Blanca from Banana Fish. Hey, Huck. As well as Poe from Bungo Stray Dogs, and Kyu-chan from Buddy Daddies. So that's great. I really like all 3 of those characters. I like this voice actor, so I am excited to hear him as Ruthven. I think that's going to be really fun. I like that. And then finally, Jordan G pointed out that the titles in the episodes, the Crunchyroll has them translated into English, and it's somewhat different than the French translations, right? And they gave the example of in episode 7, the episode that Crunchyroll titles it as Love, it's titled Femme Fatale at the very end. And I will say this, Jordan was saying that Femme Fatale usually refers to as, quote, an attractive woman, especially one to cause distress or disaster to a man who becomes involved with her, end quote. And they were like, what do you think that means? And I'm not saying it was a leading comment or that it was trying to hint at something, but this is kind of my rule of thumb when people have done this in the Discord too, not just the comments, where people will be like, what do you think about this character or this? And I'm like, well, I talk about it in the discussions. I talk for like an hour about it, and I feel like I go on enough about it there that if you go back and listen to the discussions, you'll know. But I don't like to really answer in comments and the Discord because I feel like sometimes those questions are leading, like they're wanting me to think about a character or wanting me to think about something, and I'm not dumb. I can figure things out pretty quickly, and if people give me too many hints or clues, I'll figure out the twist before it happens. Like, for example, that whole Femme Fatale thing, I'm like, well, it doesn't apply to Jean, doesn't apply to Dami, so I've theorized in the last episode that Vanitas might actually be a woman, so is the Femme Fatale actually Vanitas, and she's scorned Vanitas, and that's why he's swearing revenge? And if that ends up being the case, then I'll kind of feel spoiled by that comment because it feels like it was hinting or leading at something I should pay extra attention to. And because I've done that, I've cracked the code. And it could be that I've not. I could be totally wrong. But if it ends up being, that I figured it out, I'll be like, damn, I wish I hadn't because that would have been a cool surprise and you guys would have seen me react to it. But now I know, so you won't see me surprised and it kind of ruins the reaction. So just be careful with that. I don't know with this series, there's been several comments at this point, not just about, the titles of episodes, but there's been people be like, oh, I love this ship, and we barely know the ship. Or they'll be like, oh, this character's not who I thought they ended up being by the end of the series. And I'm like, la, 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 la. So I don't know. I've noticed this series has been a little bit spoilery in its comments so far. And I don't think people are intentional. I think everybody's really excited, and I love that. But I might have to stop reading comments or stay off the Discord or do something until I'm far enough ahead that I don't feel spoiled. Because just like stuff like that, I'm like, I want to go in the series blind and have these great discussions. But if it's a series that I feel people are getting a little too spoilery or a little too hinting, then I might have to just forget comments for a while and just focus on the reactions. And then y'all can, just save your comments about those characters till we get to those episodes, and then we can talk about it. But when I try to always say, like, I'm going into this series blind for the first time. And most people that are commenting have watched the series in full. So just be mindful and considerate, and then I can answer your questions or your comments. But I don't know. Anyway, I've just felt that with this series so far, that I love how excited people are, but it also makes me really nervous to read comments because I'm like, I don't want the mystery to be ruined, right? And I feel like that one comment about the femme fatale, I'm like, did you just tell me that Vanitas is a woman and that she's the one that's wronged Vanitas somehow? Because otherwise I wouldn't have thought about it. If I hadn't read that comment, I wouldn't have even thought about it. And now it's like been consuming my brain all day, and I'm like, but... And it's one of those things, a lot of people are like, oh, when I read a spoiler, I forget it. I'm like, I don't. I have a teacher brain. I remember everything forever. So the only thing I'm not good with are names. But plot points, things like that, I remember those like crazy. So, but we'll see. Hopefully it wasn't a spoiler, but we'll see. So, anyway, I'm really excited, y'all. I hope you all are too, but we're going to meet Ruth Verne. I don't know what Ruth Verne is going to suggest. We saw in the last episode there was a bed that had someone inside of it. I know Lucas has talked about their brother being a curse bearer and his uncle is Ruth Verne, so I'm assuming that the brother would be Ruth Verne's nephew, so he would have reason for Vanitas and them to want to cure them. So we'll see where that goes. But with that being said, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start the episode and see what we get. Right? And so we are going to start the case study of Vanitas, episode 8. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Well, the rule of 8 has yet to steer me wrong. Oh my gosh! What? Oh, we got a lot in this episode. We got an awful lot. We got Roland. We got a new character. We got some stuff about the Queen. We've got some stuff going on. I'm very interested in a lot of things. And again, like this series, what I love about this series, and the reason why I'm so cautious about spoilers is because there's such a mystery with this show. But it's not just creating a mystery about one thing like Vanitas or a mystery about Noe. There's a mystery about the world building. There's a mystery about the teacher. There's a mystery about the Chasseurs. There's a mystery about 1,000 things in this series, and the mysteries just keep building one after the other, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I have to be extremely cautious, and that's maybe one of the reasons why I don't know if I'll watch ahead or not, or if I'll be super careful about comments. But I really want to tread lightly because there's so much mystery and I don't want anything given away. I'm like, I want to experience it like you all for the first time and figure it all out as I go. Mysteries are some of my favorite types of genres to watch, but they're also the ones you have to be most careful about with spoilers because people that have seen the series will just be like, oh, well, and then this happens. And you're like, no, and then it ruins it, right? So I've got to be super careful. So again, I will probably posit theories and you all will probably be like, you are so close or you're so wrong. Don't tell me. Let me wallow in my ignorance. Let me be a sweet summer child. Let me be so wrong. And then once I'm so wrong and I figured out, I'll be like, look, you all were probably sitting there like, what, Romania? Really? And then that's where we go. But man, oh, so much happened in this episode, right? So much happened. And just the idea of Her Majesty the Queen is somewhere within the walls. So there's a difference between the Queen of Fangs and Her Majesty the Queen themselves. So right, so we know that the Queen of Fangs is Veronica, who is Dami's sister, and quote unquote the teacher's granddaughter. Funny that. She's the Queen of Fangs, but she's not Her Majesty the Queen. Her Majesty the Queen is someone different. The Queen, we're going to put her in big letters. The Queen she's not dead yet. We don't think that she's dead, but she definitely seems like either a curse bearer herself, or could be dead. Could be a corpse. I don't know. It's the bed that was there last time in the end credits. And that bed, if we think about it, the bed that was in the end credits had the smoke smoky ash coming off of it that Charlatan had. So it makes me lead to believe that she is a curse bearer. But it could be like a Norman Bateman Psycho thing where you like turn around, it's just a corpse in the bed. We don't know. But it has like the grisly arm. The thing that's so interesting is that the hand that Luca reaches out to grab, the hand of the queen, is black with the nails like Vanitas, but it's not Vanitas' actual hand, it's the gloves that he wears. So, but I find that interesting. Like visually, there seems to be a connection there visually. We just don't know it yet. And it would make sense because Vanitas is related to the moon. It's gotten its power from the Blue Moon Vampire, which is, in my opinion, related to Charlatan and all them. They're all connected somehow. The curses, everything. But interesting. They're all looking within there. I love Ruthven's study. I really like that Ruthven and Vanitas are the ultimate red versus blue. So even though they're, the guests of Ruthven meant to aid him, what's funny about that is that from the moment we saw Ruthven and saw that color scheme, it should have been apparent that they were going to be enemies. You had red versus blue and then Noé's in the middle with purple. Interesting, right? I really like his study with the constellation and all the purple like royal curtains and everything, and like the abacus there and all the inventions. He says, "Oh, don't worry about that." He says you don't need to worry about lots of things. Ruthven is interesting already, right? And I want to find this here. Ruthven is interesting. We're gonna put Ruthven right here. We have Ruthven here. He seems very smart, and he seems reasonable, but he is putting on an act. He knows things. And is good at using and manipulating. Right? And he's one of those characters that you can't really get mad at in the series at the beginning, because we don't know his full true colors, right? We don't know his true colors. We know that he's very manipulative. He puts on this act of being like a really nice guy, and maybe he is nice, but he's also very smart. He's one of those characters that even if he turns out to be an ally for Vanitas and Noé by the end of this, he's one of those characters that would use them for his own purposes. Whether it was nefarious or there was good intention behind it, he's not afraid to use people, especially for his own advantage. But yeah, so we need to talk about just some of the random stuff he throws out. He throws out some random things and then just lets it float there for us, the audience, and then says, "Oh, well, don't worry about that. Let's move on." And I'm like, how about we not move on? Because we need to go back for that. What? So yeah, let's go about some lore stuff. We're gonna put lore items over here, right? We're gonna put lore items. Oh, Whiteboard Coon's feeling those. He's all squeaky. But yeah, so Noé, he says, it makes sense considering you are the shapeless ones. The shapeless one's child. What does that mean? Excuse me? That makes Noé seem like he's rather important, which they established that he was able to see memories through the blood of the vampires. So he's able to infiltrate and move through the formulaic world in a different way, right? By drinking the blood of others and seeing their memories. But Noé does not seem to really react to that. He goes, "Oh, you're the shapeless one's child." Makes total sense. And Noé's like, "Oh, what, you know this about me?" I'm like, "What does he know about you?" I'm like, "Noé, ask questions. Why aren't you asking questions?" "Your teacher loathes me." Yeah, so, So what we also find out is, and I guess we'll put this in our lore bit, is that the teacher hates Ruthven. I don't think it's because the teacher and Ruthven are different. No, I think it's because the teacher and Ruthven are very similar that he doesn't like them. I believe that the teacher is just as manipulative as Ruthven can be, and the teacher knows that Ruthven is just as smart as he is, and the teacher doesn't like it. The teacher doesn't like the fact that there's someone that can match him in terms of wit, and that's why he doesn't care for him. I fully believe that. I don't think that the teacher dislikes Ruthven because they're different. I think it's because they're very, very similar. Ruthven is just better at hiding it, whereas I feel like the teacher's very upfront about how sketchy he is. Like the conversation with Louis, the conversation with Noé, everything. He's very upfront by how sketch he can be. Ruthven seems to be putting on the biggest front, like he doesn't want to give it away, right? And I think that's maybe why maybe the teacher's like, just own yourself and be yourself. Don't try to hide behind this mask, or behind this eye patch, rather. He even disliked my name passing his lips. Yeah, so the fact of the matter is the teacher does not like Ruthven at all. Good to know. We also find out that Luca is a Grand Duke, and he's second to the Queen. Does that make the Queen his mom? Does it make it his sister? We don't know. We know that he has a brother, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But that explains Jean. Because, yeah, we've hyped Jean up as this really powerful, former executioner. And I was like, man, why is this woman who's so crazy powerful, why is she just guarding this rando kid that's like from just a noble family? Because there seems to be a lot of noble vampires. What makes him special? He's second to the Queen. That's what makes him special. So it's like, okay, that's why he needs the protection, because he is still theoretically a child, but he's the next in line to be second to her. Interesting. Interesting indeed. And then we pan over to Vanitas. No doubt he'd eradicate all traces of my name to keep it from your eyes. So basically saying that the teacher does not want Noe to meet Ruthven. Ruthven, I could see why the teacher wouldn't like that, because Ruthven, even though he's not explaining any of these secrets, he's just divulging. He seems to be divulging a lot of information without explaining it, but it's just enough to probably get Noe and Vanitas curious, where they will go ask questions. And I always have gotten the impression that the teacher likes to maintain a level of control over Noe, like writing him letters, saying how are things, checking in with him. Like he's keeping tabs on Noe. And a character like Ruthven doesn't seem like he would be opposed to just spilling some information to Noe and letting it go out of control, right? I feel like Ruthven and the teacher are different in that regard. From what we've seen so far, Ruthven knows what he can control, and Noe is not part of his circle, whereas with the teacher, Noe is like at the center of it. So that's rather interesting. And Noe's like, well, yeah, it sounds like the teacher. I'm like, I'm glad you acknowledge it. And he's like, ha ha, it does, doesn't it? He's just such a creep, isn't he? And I just love it, Noe just like scooting back and forth, like, I don't really want to talk about my teacher. I like that Ruthven instantly knows that Noe's a little bit uncomfortable about the teacher being talked about, and he's looking over at the abacus like as a distraction, and that's where he says, oh, does this machine interest you? It's my division machine. It's powered by Astromite. And I like that Vanitas is like, this is cute. Real glad we're talking about this abacus. Nice job, but can we get back to the matter at hand? I like Vanitas is like, I didn't come here to small chat. I didn't come here to chit chat. I came here to get this over with. Let's cut to the chase, shall we? And then we get to the OP. I feel like that's something else too, is that Vanitas, it's not that Ruthven's actions are something Vanitas is not used to. That is not the case at all. Vanitas does the exact same thing that Ruthven does. Vanitas puts on a face and tricks people as well, just like Ruthven is doing. But I think that Vanitas does not appreciate that Ruthven is tricking Noe. He's like, okay, leave the puppy alone. And let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? I like that the cups are purple. They're the mix of red and blue. And he's like, oh, I want to thank you for your heroic actions. Lucius told me everything. And here's the thing. I can understand why Vanitas does not want to get Noe involved. For obvious reasons, in that Vanitas likes Noe and he doesn't want him to get hurt. But there's also something else with this too, right? In that, let's go ahead and say this. Noe is a sweet summer child. He is quite oblivious, and Noe doesn't mind being oblivious. That's kind of the most frustrating thing, I think, for Vanitas, is that Noe clearly has a sense of justice. He has this clear way that he thinks about the world, but Noe is very naive. Very naive. Like, he didn't know anything about, like, even Dami, and Dami likes Noe, so she's not gonna totally correct him. She's trying to shelter him too, but Noe knew nothing about Ruthven at all. Nothing about him. And he didn't even know that Lucius was Luca, right? He's just so like over his head. And I feel like Dami tries to shelter him too, because she doesn't want him to know. Maybe it feels like everyone around Noe is afraid of him knowing too much, right? And even Vanitas to an extent wants to keep Noe away from the truth because I don't think they think that Noe can handle it, or that they think he'll fly off the handle with his sense of justice and it will cause more harm than good. But what can we do, right? What can we do? And so they talk about the ball and they explain, and Ruthven knows an awful lot about what's going on. Ruthven knows a lot. He knows about Charlatan. He said he thought the hallucinations were some that only curse bearers could see, but they are not, or so we think. And he knows exactly like what was going on. He's like, I believe the attack was an attempt on Lucius's life, which is rather curious, right? Rather curious. So Ruthven believes, that Luca is targeted. If Luca is second in command or second to the throne, yeah, I guess that would be a reason to target him. He's the next in line in case if something happens to Her Majesty, then yeah, he would be next in line, which is interesting. So that begs the question, do they think that Veronica's involved in this? Do they think, is there a power struggle under the scenes that we don't know about yet? Are there vampires in the upper echelon vying for the power that Luca has, and getting rid of Luca will ensure that? We don't know. We don't know, right? It's very, very curious. So the chaos caused by the curse bearers was likely an attempt to distract the queen's fangs. Okay, so the queen's fangs, not the queen of fangs. The queen's fangs is Veronica. So she's basically like a glorified hunting dog, essentially, right? That it was trying, that Charlatan was to distract Veronica. To distract Veronica, and then Nania, they know her name too. The one who steals true names. Like, they know Nania too. So yeah, Ruthven knows like everything we know, which is kind of insane, right? I'm like, what is going on? And suggesting it's no surprise there were a number of curse bearers there. So yeah, what the hell? And then meanwhile, like, Ruthven is like playing 3D chess and is like 20 moves ahead, and Noe's back there going, wait, Lucius is Luca, right? I was like, you're such a bimbo! You're such a himbo, Noe. What are you doing? I was just like, Noe, we're like three paragraphs ahead in the story right now. Why would they try to kill him? And Vanitas is like, are you serious? You really don't get it. He's like, the boy has the rank and power second only to the queen. There are countless nobles who feel he's in their way. Isn't that right, Luca? Or should I say Lucius, the Grand Duke Oriflamme? And he's like, the Grand Duke, really? It's like, yes. Yeah, so Luca is a lot more important than he originally seemed, which explains John being there. And also explains, if Vanitas had kind of suggested that he figured out who Luca was right off the bat, it also suggests why perhaps Vanitas wants to get close to Jean. If he gets close to Jean, that means he can stay close to Luca, who's the second line to the queen, figure out what's going on with the queen, and bust this case wide open. I am fully convinced that Vanitas knows exactly what he's doing, this little sewer rat, and he's like, if I keep my friends close and my enemies closer, I'm going to potentially find out where the nest is. Where's the hive? Where's the Queen Charlatan, right? And he's like, the Grand Duke is Her Majesty's close advisor. And he's like, that's right. So Luca is basically, he is advisor to the Queen. This little kid, advisor to the Queen. Who knew? Who knew, right? What crazy things happening? And then Luca just is like, I wouldn't call it amazing. Lord Uncle, who's my guardian, handles all my duties as the Grand Duke. So yeah, Luca's mainly like there to talk with the Queen and give advice and observe. But when it comes to political things, Ruthven kind of steps in as the Grand Duke, right? He's the political figurehead. So he is the figurehead with Luca. I don't think Ruthven, I could be wrong, but I don't think at this point that Ruthven is trying to get Luca in trouble. I think quite the opposite. He doesn't want Luca to be in trouble because, I mean, Ruthven has really everything to lose in this situation. Like Ruthven hasn't made. He gets to basically be a Grand Duke beside his nephew, and he gets to do all the political stuff while his nephew counsels this corpse. So I feel like Ruthven's in a very stable power place. So why would he want to leave? So it makes sense. He doesn't want anything to happen to Luca because that's like his gravy train. Can't let that go. He's like, my succession to the office hasn't been made official yet. So yeah, that's the thing. It's not official. So he's like an interim. He's just basically, it's not official yet. That's why all this is going on, because like it's not official yet, and there's possibly people that are after his life. Like they don't want it to become official. So we get this like whole political sphere in this one episode. And of course, Ruthven's like, I didn't want to think that you'd gone into the mortal realm without leave. He's like, you need to be conscious more of your own position. And he's like, of course, uncle. And then Noé's like, Luca, weren't you seeking the Book of Vanitas to save your brother? We're going to go back to this. I'm glad Noé brought it up because I was starting to forget about it in the moment. And then when he brought it up, I was like, oh, Noé, yes, thank you. So we have the idea that Luca is after the book to save his brother, right? So he's going to try to save his brother using the book. Now, this part's interesting because he's like, my brother suffers dearly from the vampire of the Blue Moon's curse. He's like, where is he now? Ruthven doesn't want to talk about this. This is the part where it's like, do you know when you've talked to somebody and they tell you a really important personal thing about their family, and then you show up at the family reunion with them and you're like, oh, it's that personal thing, and the rest of the family's like, who told you? This wasn't supposed to get out to the public. And suddenly you're like, I wasn't me. He told me, Like, that's this moment. That's that awkward family reunion where the friend comes and asks the really personal question that nobody wants to talk about. That's this moment. He's like, let's forget about that. I feel like that's Ruthven's catchphrase. He's like, let's forget about it. Let's not talk about that. We don't want to address that. But the brother situation is fascinating because he's like, let's not speak of it. And I feel like Vanitas knows exactly what's going on. The expression on Vanitas's face is, oh, yeah, we're prying into some personal business that nobody wants to talk about. Maybe we shouldn't pry anymore. I like Vanitas's expression is perfection. It speaks that I get what they're talking about. We need to not pry any deeper. But Noé is a sweet summer child who doesn't know. And he's just like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm telling you. I like that Ruthven does make it very clear because Noé just has like the Sims question mark shooting out his face. And Ruthven's like, I'm just saying, I'm telling you not to mention the boy's brother ever again. Like he's saying, I can't, did I stutter? Like it was a Stan moment. Did I stutter? And Noé is like, what? And then we see in this room, there are chains around his arms. Salvation takes many forms. Freeing him from the curse is not necessarily in his best interest. So, talk about this. The idea of salvation. Because that word has been brought up quite a lot, right? That word has been brought up quite a lot in this so far. But it shows the brother locked up in the straitjacket, but in what seems to be like a paradise room. Got like the flowers, everything, but he's locked up in there. So Ruthven almost seems to be suggesting that maybe the brother is insane. Maybe the brother's an asshole. Maybe the brother is the worst person ever. And because he is the curse bearer, they've locked him up so he can't go outside and tear shit up, and he's just stuck there. And maybe it's a situation where they feel like in order for him to have this sense of calm and be free, he needs to be in this place away from everybody. But again, we talk about salvation. Is that salvation? To Ruthven, it seems like keeping the brother locked up is the better thing to do. Like, oh, well, he's better off this way. He's a menace to society otherwise. He would try to kill Luca possibly and try to hurt others, so we've locked him away in the straitjacket. He's fine. He's by himself. He's in paradise. He's fine. But of course, we know that to Noe, that's not salvation. And to Vanitas, that's not salvation. So I feel like it's an interesting contrast here where Ruthven's suggesting, no, everything's fine because he's away from everybody. He's by himself. He's having a great time in handcuffs. And Noe is kind of like, wait, what? Freeing him from the curse is not necessarily in his best interest. And Noe is just like just looks so disheartened because to Noe, a curse bearer eventually will die or they'll go insane. And so I'm sure Noe is having a hard time understanding how could him be locked up by himself be better than being free. But we don't know the brother. We don't know if the brother is a horrible person or not. We don't know. He says, but enough about that. I was like, what do you mean enough about that? So, damn it, show. They give us just enough with the brother to tease us and make us wonder what the hell's going on. And then they're like, never mind. So there's all these constellations in the sky here. And I know that people are going to point out what is what. There's a lot of constellations. I can't name all of them, but I'm sure you all will tell me the constellations that are in the sky at this moment. But enough about that. You've come to ask about curse bearers. Well, we are asking about curse bearers, and your nephew's a curse bearer, so why don't you just finish that story first? But dang it. Grumble, grumble, grumble. And that's when Ruthven says, just like how you have a lot of questions, I have a lot of questions about the Blue Moon Clan, about the Book of Vanitas, the Vampire of the Blue Moon. Vanitas does not look like he wants to talk about him at all. Vanitas looks like he would rather talk about anything else in the world and watch paint dry than talk about his past. He looks like he'd rather not. And about you. Vanitas is like, he's like, let's not talk about me. I don't want to do that. He's like, you're right. I love that any time, the moment Vanitas' hair swishes, it's like shit's about to go down. At this exact moment, he's like, we should devote this time to more fruitful discussions. You're right. We should talk about things that aren't so trivial. But he's like, I want to start with my request if I'm helping you. And he's like, what is it? Speak. And he's like, oh, I thought you'd never ask. I'm like, you gremlin, you trollop, you rat king. You know exactly what you're doing. The moment you walked in that door, you knew what you were going to ask. You knew what information you wanted, and you've been waiting patiently this whole time to spring it on everybody. I know you. And he says, take me to your queen. Take me to your leader. And I like that Jean's like, Vanitas, what? And I like that Ruthven stays as cool as a cucumber. Like, what are you saying? But Jean and Luca clearly react. But Ruthven's like, what are you talking about? He says, did you not hear me? I'm telling you to take me to your leader. Take me to your queen. And he's like, why? He's like, oh, it's very simple. He's like, I believe it's the queen who gives rise to the curse bearers. So yeah, at this point, the camera does some really funky stuff. Like, it's just like adding the tension on as much as it can. So Vanitas says that he believes that that the queen is causing the curses. Now, do we think that this is all just an elaborate, like, just him lying to get a rise out of the vampires and to see their reactions? Yes. Does he really think that the queen is giving rise to the curse bearers? I don't think so. He was saying that because he wanted to see how they reacted, right? To see if there was some truth to it. Like, maybe he does believe it, but he wanted to see how they reacted. That's her giving rise to the curse bearers. And Noah is just like, wait, who are we talking about? And Jean is like, don't spout such nonsense. But Luca stands up like, oh shit. He's like, what's the big deal? Just let me see her. I merely wish to examine every nook and cranny of her body. I'm like, Vanitas gets so crude there. And I was waiting for Jean just to slap him, being like, stop it. But that's when we see the book. That's with him. And they're like, insolent fool. He's like, Ruthven, what say you? It should be easy with the Grand Duke's prerogative. I'm just like, you're such a troll. Oh, that face where he's just smirking. How long has it been since the Queen was seen in public? And Noé's still trying to figure out what we're talking about. How long has it been since she was seen? Why has she become a hermit? And then he's like, is she even still alive? Does she still live? Like, Vanitas is just eating this up. He's like a kid in a candy store. So he questions, like, is she alive? Why hasn't she been seen? And that gets Ruth Fern to react. And that's when he just basically wrecks the whole room. Wrecks John, wrecks Noé. Luca's the only one holding him back from killing Vanitas. He says, Uncle, please stop. And he's just so pissed. I was like, oh my God. And he says, leave this place, human. Yeah. The moment they start calling him human, you know they're mad. But yeah, he just basically busted Vanitas's lip. Every word you've spoken maligns the good name of our queen. I forbid you from ever setting foot in this castle again. So, basically, Vanitas and Noé got kicked out. That was very short-lived. I honestly I did not expect them to get kicked out or to be banished from Ruth Fern's castle. Did not expect that to happen. Fun times. I love they're like, yeah, we got kicked out a week ago, and then they sent the cat back late. I like that Mur got sent back separate. They boot us back across the vet barrier, and he's like, I've been sleeping it off for a week. My body hurts so much because I'm human, not a vampire. He's like, and that's basically it. And the Count and them were like, are you freaking serious? You botched everything. Why? They're like, you blasted fools. What did you do? Why did you show such insolence? And he's like, I got the information that I wanted. And so then we go back to the Queen's bed, right? And Luca next to the mattress. I really love this scene, actually, of the beautiful bed with the canopy. I really love this scene and Luca on the bed next to her and him just kind of looking like dead-eyed. I really love that visual because poor Luca, he's this kid that's second in command to this corpse, curse-bearing woman. We don't know. Who knows what's there? And he just doesn't know what to do. I love that he's like, he played us for fools. He wasn't interested in Ruth Fern at all. He was interested in Luca. Most vampires will fly into a blind rage when Her Majesty is insulted. And you should have too, but you didn't. And Vanitas knows that Luca is genuine. He knows Luca is sincere. He's a kid. He's not able to be manipulative like Ruth Fern is. So when Luca reacts, it's the real reaction that we should pay attention to. And how nervous he was. You showed a moment of dismay. You basically confirmed everything he said. And poor Luca, like, crying there. And he's like, Your Majesty, and we don't see anything but the black hand. What am I to do? And the black hand looks just like Vanitas' hand. So we don't know the Queen. We don't know the Queen at all. We know she's got a black hand, kind of looks like Vanitas. We don't know anything else. But we know that she's not been seen in public for a long time. She's probably a curse bearer, if she's not already dead. And Luca's like, what am I to do? Yeah, what am I going to do? How am I going to solve this? Vanitas is trying to figure things out. What are we going to do? And Vanitas is like, I need information. And of course, the Count and them are not going to help him. And I like that Noé, in his little chibi form, like, picks up the little report. And he's like, oh, there's been an incident of vampires disappearing. That's interesting. And they're like, hands off the files. And they go leave. So then we learn about more lore, right? So we learn about the three, Riche and Dante and the girl. What's her face? And they have like the little bats hanging off of them. And they're like, oh, well, we got information on the curse bearers. And I'll do you a solid and sell it to you. And so it was yesterday when we located this curse bearer who slipped into Paris not long ago. But they were taken away. And I was trying to see if we saw, like, somebody cloaked. She was abducted before our eyes. Yeah, so I'm like, we don't see the person in the cloak and what they look like. We don't see what all they're wearing. if there was charlatan or what the case is. But there's basically been vampires. Vampires have been abducted for reasons. We don't know why, but vampires have been abducted. And then we learn about the, I'm going to get their name right here in just a minute. But we learn that Richie and Dante and the girl, get her name, they are all half vampire, half humans. Which is an interesting little thing to come about in all of this. I got dragged in and beat up as well. And then we say, what'd you say, hag? I love you. He's like, shut it, fatty. And they just fight over each other. He's like, children, there's no need to fight. I love it. Johan, that's right. Johan got beat up too. That's it. Got Richie, or Johan is the one with the gray hair. Richie's the girl. Yep. But they are all half human, half vampires. So they're not, directly targeted, which is fun. I love that Vanitas and Noe are like, why do we get your help from you all? It's like, when I was alone, I was mistaken for a vampire and nearly abducted. But I fled the moment they realized I was a dom. It was so rude. He's like, a dom? He's like, yes, we're a mixed race. All three of us are. And Noe's like, oh, he says, haven't you ever seen a dhampir before? So yeah, so what they are is that he calls them doms, but they say that they are a dhampir. That they're half human, half vampire. So that's really cool. I like that. I like that these three kind of have this little underground society. I also think that that explains why Vanitas was so eager and okay with getting help from them, because they're kind of outcasts like Vanitas is. Vanitas is an outcast for being part of the Blue Moon clan and being a human with vampire powers. These guys are mixed blood creatures, and so he's like, yeah, it makes total sense. Now, I'm assuming that the human is the mom and the vampire is the dad, because I don't know how formulaically that works with having human DNA mixed with that. I don't know how that works. I don't want to know the logistics. But, and he's like, no, I'd never seen one before. This is a trophy. I tore up the abductor's coat. Now, I'm just saying, when I see six wings, I think of angels. I think of like the Old Testament angels with the 6 wings, all the eyes, the crazy stuff going on, the sword and everything. It feels to me like the Chasseurs are related to angels. I just have this feeling, and Vanitas does not react well to this at all. He reacts very suspiciously. Like, was Vanitas a Chasseur? Could have been. Could have been. The one who abducted the vampires and is the one that Orlok is after. It's the church's anti-vampire unit, the Chasseurs. And so, yeah, okay, so they're the ones taking the vampires because they have the cloaks. So that's it. Okay. But the Chasseurs are not Chasseurs. That's the thing. Vanitas says there's something else. So the Chasseurs are the ones that are abducting the vampires. And they have the angel wings on the button. My theory is that Vanitas, before he got the powers of the Blue Moon, my theory is that either Vanitas was a Chasseur and then got the powers of the Blue Moon vampire and obviously could not be, or he was someone that was maybe in the care of or knew about the Chasseurs, and that's how it led to it happening. Because he knew everything about that lair without even having to try. Like, he knew where to go to, like he'd been there before. So my theory is he is one of them. He was one of the Chasseurs before, but then obviously once the Blue Moon vampire gave him his power, he couldn't stay there, right? So then we have Roland. Roland's like, Vanitas, was it? Not only was he made a minion of the Blue Moon clan. So yeah, the way that Roland talks, it almost phrases it like Vanitas was a victim of the Blue Moon vampire, like he was enlisted unwillingly into his services, which could very well be the case. They say vampires are flocking to his side in an attempt to use his power. That part is not quite true. I don't think the vampires are flocking to his side to use his powers. They may be following him to try to get them from him, but I don't think they're flocking to his side. He doesn't have a lot of allies at this point. It's mainly Dami and Noe. But what a poor, pitiful child. We must do whatever it says to save him in the name of the Lord. Yeah, so of course, Roland's like, well, we're going to have to destroy him to save his life. He's having to work for the Blue Moon Vampire without even realizing it, or is doing it against his will. So we have to save him. And by save him, I mean we need to destroy him. I'm a sucker for a blonde, and I'm a sucker for green eyes. Or blue eyes. So this just got more complicated. I'm like, oh my God, Roland, what is happening? So yeah, so then we have the catacombs. And talk about the catacombs and all this. We're the catacombs of Paris. And they talk about how it's become like a tourist trap. A tourist attraction here. But it's all like a tunnel network beneath Paris. The idea being that the catacombs are going to be explained now so that when we go back to the Chasseurs, we know what a catacomb is so we can go through it even more. Do you think we'll find them in this labyrinth? Dante must have come down here to find a way. And then I like that Richie or Johann shows up and says, oh no, the bad blood between the vampires and the Chasseurs still runs deep. Yeah, the Chasseurs don't like the vampires, which makes sense. It's, demons in the church. We want to get rid of the vampires. I love Johann, like, rubbing up against Myrrh. That's really cute. He's like, one false move, and you're done. And, of course, Dante makes a scene. That's really funny. So, yeah, so then they figure out what to do now. And I love Vanitas and Dante just arguing, saying baldy and idiot to one another over and over again. And then the thing of it is that Johann does not know the meaning of personal space. He just puts his head right on Noé's shoulder, and he's like, are you worried about Vanitas? I feel like Johann wants to be a wingman. He wants to, like, be a wingman for Noé, and Noé's too oblivious to know what he's talking about. He's like, oh, are you worried about Vanitas? And Noé's like, yeah, actually, he's not acting like his eccentric self, which means he's worried. I feel like Noé knows that Vanitas puts on an act a lot. He's figured that out about him. And so when he's at the point where he's not putting on an act and he's just acting cool, that means something's up. That means there's something we should probably be worried about. And then I love one, Noé like hugging his pillow as he sleeps. It's cute. But then I like the visual representation of Noé being restless and he can't sleep. Like he turns over, he can't sleep. He's like, something's up with Vanitas. And then we go to the roof where Vanitas is looking at the pin. Like I said, Vanitas has connections with the Chasseurs, either from his past or by knowing somebody that has had a past with them, and he knows he doesn't want to mess with them, or he knows how dangerous they are, that there's something else to them we don't know about. And he decides to go investigate on his own. I love that shot of him in the moonlight. But then Noé's like, what took you so long? I love Noé's like, I almost finished my book. Noé tries to act suave and debonair, right? He has a really good moment coming up that's really good. But like 90% of the time, he's a sweet summer child. And then 10% of the time, he's a badass. And I'm like, Noé, what do we do with you? But I love this. I love that Vanitas is like, I don't want you to come with me. He's like, I took a respectable cat nap. He's so freaking cute. How can you say no to him? How? And Vanitas is like, I couldn't care less. Oh, it's so sweet. But again, here's the thing. Vanitas doesn't want Noé to get hurt. And he knows Vanitas is a sweet summer. He knows Noé is a sweet summer child. He's not privy on everything that's going on. Vanitas knows a lot. Noé knows next to nothing. So I feel like Vanitas believes that Noé is like a liability if he comes with him. He's like, you're a liability. You don't know what's going on. You're going to end up getting hurt. I don't want to be responsible. But I love this line from Noé where Vanitas is like, stop following me. He's like, I'm not following you. And then he speeds up and he says, I'm joining you. It's really cute. Like, that was really sweet. It's awesome. And then Vanitas is like, I love Vanitas' like disgusted face. He's like, oh my God, that's so cliche. How dare you? Freaking adorable. Love it so much. I was like, yes, please. And it's like, dude, you should know you're not going to shake Noé away. So then, yeah, I love that Vanitas is trying to pick the lock. And then the moment the guards show up, it like does the fast motion like, hello. And then they knock them out. To their credit, because Roland thinks they killed them. They didn't kill them. They just knocked them out. To their credit. I wish they'd said something about that in the episode, right? But they get the disguises on as the Chasseurs. And then they go down into the catacombs, into the secret lair. And Noe's like, you already know about this place. You've been here before, haven't you? You know what's going on, right? The Chasseurs, who aren't really Chasseurs at all. It's like, what does that mean? And he's like, listen, Noe, if we encounter one in a fight, they'll go straight for your eyes. Underestimate human adversaries and you're dead. He's like, you can't underestimate them just because they're human. Don't underestimate what they're capable of. So then they stumble across like the crypt with all the vampire skulls in it that have been, I'm assuming the names above are talking about the vampires that have been, like, who's killed those vampires, like who's been responsible for them being killed. I'm assuming that's what that is. I'm just making a random guess. This is a different catacomb. Yeah, and all the vampires, if you notice the skulls in this room, it's not like the catacombs where they're all neatly preserved and the skulls are all like in perfect pristine condition. These skulls have been bashed in. Like, they've been bashed in, they've been mangled, they're nearly destroyed. Like, they have had some stuff happen to them. And I'm like, okay. What do we do with that? There are vestiges of high-ranking vampire. Oh my god. And then there he is. And then suddenly Roland's there with like a weapon on his back. He's like, these are predecessors slain in the underground labyrinth. And it's like, oh my god, who are you? He's like, oh, I'm Roland Fortis. Oh my god. He's like, I was appointed as one of the 12 captains. It's like, oh shit, you're really strong then, right? And because Vanitas is like, this is not good. He's like, oh, I was just recently posted here, which we don't know if that's a lie or not. That could very well be, very well could be the truth. Very well could be a lie. But he's like, follow me. He's like, oh, well, we got lost. I like that they named themselves Vincent and Gilbert. I only think of Gilbert makes me think of Violet Evergarden, and Vincent makes me think of Dracula. He's like, but the Lord's hand is in all things. How could I have come across you after losing my way? Like, hand of fate business. I love Vanitas. Vanitas does not seem like the type of person. Either Vanitas doesn't believe in this hokum, or he's just like, oh my god, I know exactly what we're definitely dealing with a Chasseur. I know exactly what we're dealing with. Either way, it's very creepy. And then they follow him into the dark alley. I'm like, I wouldn't have done that. Nah. No. And so I like the way that they're walking. Like, if something happens, we need to get out of here. The moment they walked in that big catacomb that was like just tall ceilings and looks like it's ready for a melee, I'm like, oh, we're screwed. That's like the last place. You don't want to go into somebody else's territory and then go into a big open space, because that's just like begging for a battle, right? No. And that's when he calls Vanitas over there and locks him in the room. Oh my god. And he does the whole like light grenade. But even if Noe closes his eyes, it shows that there's something about it that manages to affect vampires. So it still hurt his eyesight either way. Because he's like, oh, I thought so. You're a vampire. So even if he closed his eyes, the light grenade was going to shine through even if he was with his eyes closed to prove that he was a vampire. So it clearly was like a high dose of radiation or something. He's like, the lights rendered your eyes useless. I love the idea of the formulaic world and the real world blending together. Like, I love that there's no separation. That there has been a separation of it, but this blends it. Interesting. I love that. I love that it makes it all look really weird. And so that's when Roland asks, getting all serious, did you slay those that you stole the clothes from? The answer is no, they did not. They did not slay those guys. And Noe's like, no, we didn't. I'm glad he said that. And he's like, I don't know why you're here. But no vampire sets foot in this place leaves alive. Oh my god. And he's like, we are the Chasseurs. And he like brings out something like inject into himself. Those who corrupt the divine law of God's creation. And Vanitas is like, shit, not good. The crimson heretics are our prey. And then, yeah, whatever he injected, we are the Lord's eternal blade. Amen. Oh my god. So here's the thing too, to kind of go along with the idea of Vanitas being one of the Chasseurs originally. It seems like they were almost carrying like an hourglass at their side, which goes along with the hourglass earring that Vanitas has. But they have like the jewel around their neck, the Chasseurs have, which I think Vanitas has a similar jewel on his person as well. So I think that Vanitas was a Chasseur at one time, And either when he gained the power of the Blue Moon Vampire or something happened where he got out. I think that's what's happened. But he knows the Chasseurs. He knows they're not to be messed with. This guy has a giant weapon. So what do we do with that? But also, it kind of goes... What's interesting is that the Chasseurs say that they're hunting the vampires, which was kind of the Blue Moon Vampires' MO. So what do we do with that? There's so much going on. So much. And we've just barely got back into the brother, into all that with Luca, and now it's just like, oh, we'll just forget about that for now. I'm like, it's going to come back. That's the thing. This series is introducing so many plot lines that I'm like, okay, you know it's going to come back to that, but what do we do, right? But oh my gosh. I really loved this episode. Rule of 8 did not let me down. Now we have Roland involved. I want to see more with him. I want to know more about his character, but we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see. So I'm excited, y'all. I hope you all are too, but I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, hints, or clues, but I hope you enjoyed the reaction and discussion, and I'm excited for next week. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I'll be back next week with episode 9 of the case study of Vanitas. Bye!